Hey everyone, thank you all for watching my first video regarding Worlds Adrift and its release into early access onto Steam. Congratulations both the studios if you're ever watching this video. Thank you all for coming in and watching my second video. Again, this is going to be a more in-depth and really in all reality me rambling on about what I believe Worlds Adrift is doing right, what it can improve on in the future, and just basically my hopes for it. If you have any suggestions for any future videos, please put a comment down in the description of this video or in the first video. I'll read comments on both. The current lineup that I have is I'm going to be creating intro videos for all those who are new to the game. So basically, how to get resources, what the best resources are, what to look for in a good ship, getting through the first couple barriers, because I didn't show that in my videos, but getting through both the wind wall and the storm wall, I'll show those, and basically getting you started, and the best way to hopefully find friends in the game so that you can have a fun time like I am. Alright, thank you guys, and I hope you enjoy the video. As always, happy gaming.
So starting off, just going down my list here, is the basic working together aspect. In Sea of Thieves, you just work together to create stories, you have to get chests or get through quests by working together. And it's just easier that way, and it's more enjoyable because you have fun with each other. Now in Worlds Adrift, the world, from what I've seen, is much bigger. Maybe not as well crafted necessarily, just because Sea of Thieves is a beautiful game and runs pretty well, at least from what I've experienced. And Worlds Adrift is, a game that's coming out of alpha into early access beta. And I think actually the first little bit will be early access alpha. But just the polish that's already on the game, although not great, is still good. And there is so much to the world. There are ruins that you can explore. There are islands upon hundreds of islands for you to explore within the different regions. There's typically, from what I've seen, about 10 islands per region, and I think there's about 12 regions, so maybe 120 islands, but the islands can be small to huge to massive, and they all have little stories that they tell. The other thing about the islands, which are the main things that you explore, most, if not all of them, are player created. The Worlds Adrift and Bosa Studios has made a tool for people to create islands themselves with all the different tools that they have in their engine, so that you can create your own islands for people to explore and create different stories within them for people to discover. Now, obviously, that's a big distance apart from Sea of Thieves, where everything was created by, obviously the developer. Now, why does this make a difference? Well, first off, if you give the development tool to all the different players, you're going to get a whole lot more content. And the thing about it is, whenever they reboot their servers, which they do time to time, just because it's a progressive game, and they have to sometimes wipe servers in order to bring in big expansions, they introduce more islands, and they have lots and lots of islands to explore. And if you want to check out an island by itself, you can go into the island creator and download an island from somebody via the Steam Workshop and check it out. And I know that the Worlds Adrift game by itself is not on Steam yet, but the Worlds Adrift island creator is. I've tried my hand at it, and it's actually pretty hard. So some of these islands that you'll be seeing now, as it were, are just massive, and people who are way more creative than me have spent hours upon hours working on these things, and they're great. So that's just basically the basis of it, is working together feels more accomplishing because you're exploring islands that are just way more interesting, that have a whole lot more story behind them, and are way more varying. And just the basic exploration of it is just much better. Now, the worlds between the two of them, I do think Worlds Adrift, and I might be a little biased because I played it a little bit before Sea of Thieves, I think is more beautiful. Now, the art might not be quite as nice or as advanced, but that's all up to a person's preference. I think Sea of Thieves might have quote-unquote better graphics, but Worlds Adrift, just the feeling of the world is better. You feel that awe, you feel I have had way more experiences, so like I can't believe how beautiful this world, especially as an early access game made by Bosa Studios, which is not the biggest developer. You know, they've made I Am Toast and stuff like that. And they have a decently large team, but it's nothing compared to large teams that work on like Bethesda studio games and stuff like that. Not that Sea of Thieves was made by a super large team either, but the feeling that you get in Worlds Adrift is so much better than in Sea of Thieves. Now going between them, it's the progression system of Sea of Thieves versus the progression system of Worlds Adrift are way different. To be honest, in Sea of Thieves, there's almost no progression system. You can get a little bit bigger ships, but they're pretty simple, and you can get cosmetic gear for people to see how long you've been playing the game and how many missions you have accomplished. And Worlds Adrift, to a certain extent, it can be challenging, especially if you're by yourself. So how it is the world is split into 4 different zones. There's lots of zones. Like I said, there's about 15 or so zones. I may have said 12, but it's about 15 or so zones. And each zone is a different difficulty. So the beginning zones are just where you start off as a fresh scrub. And the scrubs, they don't have anything. They can't even build a ship yet. They have to explore the island that they're plopped on and then get the information to build their first ship, which doesn't take that long. It takes about 15 minutes for you to do your first ship. And if you're actually exploring everything, you probably have enough to create your first engine, which is a big thing in this, because if you just create a sail, which there are like one type of sails at the moment, it's going to take you forever to get to the next island. When I first started playing Worlds Adrift and I just had a sail on my ship, I thought that I wasn't moving anywhere from one island to another. I thought I got stuck, but no, it's just taking forever. So you want to get engines. The beginning areas only have certain tier of engines and wings and just basic gear. So you want to be able to get to the next area in order to get better gear that makes your ship go faster, makes it hit harder, because you do have different cannons that you can invest in and that you can put research points into. There is a very large progression system in Worlds Adrift. Could probably be a little bit more expanded upon, and it will, I believe, as the game progresses. And in Sea of Thieves, there's nothing. Also in Worlds Adrift, it's difficult to get from one area to another, especially by yourself. The first barrier, like going from a tier 1 area to a tier 2 area, is a wind wall, and that's not that hard. As long as you have some engines and you strap it onto your ship and you're going fast enough, you can punch through that wall and it doesn't damage your ship. You're just trying to punch through. And then you're in tier 2 and you're getting some decent gear by then. And you want to keep going between the different zones, because obviously there's multiple tier 2s and multiple tier 1 zones, to keep getting research points by exploring more islands so that you can keep upgrading your ship and get to the higher tiers. Now the tier 3 zone is a storm wall, and that's when it starts damaging your ship. And this is where it goes back to you want to work together to keep exploring, because you yourself, or whoever is captaining the ship, needs to keep piloting the ship, or else it's just going to keep batting you left and right and you're not going to get anywhere. But you also need somebody who's able to repair the components that are on your ship, like the engines or the wings or the fuel tank or anything really, just because the storm will try to destroy it all as you're trying to get through. After that, you get to tier 3, and tier 3 to tier 4 areas have a sand wall, and that's just basically hell. There's like almost no way, unless you have a good team and a great ship, to get through that. And tier 4 is like hallelujah. You can like basically make an air battleship at that point with just all the stuff that you can get from there. So Sea of Thieves, almost no progression, and World Adrift, or as I like to call it, as of at least in this video, Air of Thieves, very good progression system, at least as far as I've seen, especially for an early access game. Now between the two, the next one I want to get on is the updates. Sea of Thieves is getting decent updates, but so is Worlds Adrift. Worlds Adrift gets constant updates. I see minor updates at least every week, and major updates typically happen, I think it's on like a month and a half, 2 month basis, and those are like major updates that change the the UI, change what islands you can find, and introducing lots of different content into the game. So those are about on par. I mean, obviously Worlds Adrift has a whole lot more to put in, but they're both about updating at the same point. And both teams, from what I've seen, are invested, but I do think that Worlds Adrift team is a little bit more invested. They seem excited to get into this game and into this genre. MMO genres are known for being kind of brutal to the developers. They take a lot of resources, they have a certain lifespan, and if you don't get off on the right foot, they could crash and burn before they do well at all. Take a ESO, for example. A lot of time went into it, and it wasn't implemented correctly. And people got into it, were hyped for it, and then they were disappointed, left. And now it's starting to get back into it. Like, it's a pretty good MMO, and I play it quite a bit. But they lost a lot of people just because it wasn't implemented correctly. And that's what also happened to Sea of Thieves. Now, Sea of Thieves isn't nearly as much of an MMO as ESO or WoW, but it does have MMO aspects, and it was hyped up to a certain extent, and it disappointed. Now, Worlds Adrift is the same type of MMO as Sea of Thieves is. It doesn't have massive amounts of people per server, but it has enough that if you overhype it, or you don't know what you're getting into, or they don't implement stuff correctly, they could crash and burn. But I think that the team is invested enough and knows what they're doing enough that when it does come out into the public and people see it, they'll be excited to see how it's developing. And I do trust Bosa Studios to be able to keep up with the game and the updates to make it a good MMO experience. We all know how it is with Steam and with early access. You can get into the four horsemen of the apocalypse is survival, open world, what is it? Open world, early access, and there's one other. Oh, and crafting. Yeah, those are the four horsemen of apocalypse. I saw it on Reddit when it comes to Steam games, and unfortunately, Worlds Adrift falls right into that category. But it's one of the ones that it's polished already, and they took their time getting it even to early access. People bought into the game because they believed in it, and it's been progressing very well, especially for just being in early access. And I think it's going to keep doing better, especially since the developers, Bosa Studios, they're not a giant team, but they're a dedicated team. Going after that, I think, and me thinking that it'll be able to survive better than other games, is I think that it has one of the better formulas out of other survival games I've seen. It's not like, and one of the big tropes of survival games or things like that is battle royale games nowadays. And it's not a battle royale game at all. It does have PvP, and PvP can get super invested, but it's not that game at all. It's by definition just an exploration game where you're trying to discover this world, this beautiful world, and shit can happen along the way. Now, the basic things that you do in the game is you explore different islands, beautifully created. You create your own ship, which is kind of addicting because there's a lot you can do to upgrade your ship. You meet other people and create your own stories, which is done, to my experience, very well. And you can craft different items into your ship. But that mainly just goes into the shipbuilding. Now, this is where I'm going to get into the kind of negative or hopeful part of the video when it comes to this game. The game has good aspects, but it also has aspects where it lacks in. Obviously, it's not as polished as it could be, but that's going to come with time. The other thing is it does have some animals in it that are for Bosa Studios itself that have created for the world. There's only 2, and there's different variants for them, but there's only 2. So I don't think it's necessarily a big thing, but what I would love is just more animals, make the world feel more lived in, because this is one of the games that suffer from having a big open world, and it feels lived in when you're on islands, but it doesn't feel so lived in with animals or anything like that. It just feels like, it's been abandoned, and that has something to do with how the game was developed and how the story unfolds. but I wished it had a little bit more, at least with animals wise, or maybe possibly some non-player characters help tell the story and stuff like that. I wish that gets implemented. I think it will, but that's something that I hope to see in the future. Now, it's a smaller server MMO, and that's not going to change because of how I believe the optimization with the game is, it won't ever be able to be a huge MMO, and just also because of how the loot system works, because a lot of the loot is just finding chests that have schematics for you or storylines for you to keep upgrading your research points. If you have a lot of people in the server, those are going to just keep getting used up, and a lot of it is exploring. So if you have a lot of people on an island and you're just following the train of people going to the place that's secret and you're supposed to explore by yourself, that kind of ruins it. So it will always stay as a smaller server MMO. I just hope it will still be okay and will still get a huge following, still being that formula. Now, I also think, just because of the people that I've seen, is that they create two different server types. The regular servers, where it all has to do with the exploration, but maybe, and I don't know how this would be implemented, a combative servers too, where it's basically you just have a few islands that you can hop from. You have about, I don't know, 20 people, maybe 30 people per team. Now, maybe that'd be too much, but you know what I'm saying. Just smallish teams, building ships up, keep getting like schematics in like a rush sense, and building your ships and trying to take each other out. That might be fun. I don't know if it would take away from the game though, or what the game's trying to accomplish. Like I said, this game can produce lots of memorable moments, more than most games that I've seen before, especially for a game that's this small, with this smallish of a team working on it. I think there's about 20 people. I could be wrong on that. I think there's about 20 people working on it. And then the other thing that I want, that I think would be cool, is if there was a possible base building. Now, it would have to be done well, because we've seen a lot of games where it's a survival game, you get into base building, and it's fun, but then that base building kind of takes away from what the game kind of could be. It's similar to what Ark Survival Evolved did, where people would just beef up too much and just kill everybody on the server. And Worlds Adrift suffers from that to a certain extent, but the developers are implementing plans to prevent that from happening. I think base building, if implemented incorrectly, could make those high-level players even more, harsh. Now, this is also the thing, is I don't want necessarily base building on the islands, and this is where it gets difficult, because base building on the islands will take away from the exploration aspect in it. If possible, I don't know if it is with their server or with their game engine, if you could create player bases on custom islands, like islands that you can personally go to, and I don't know how that would be implemented, or if they could be just floating buildings that you can go to as like a port or some kind of base where you go to and hang out with like your clan. And that is one thing that they're planning on implementing after going into early access, is clans, because they already have a clan system on their website, but implementing them into the game. Now, if you could have bases for your clans, just as a meetup place, hey, we got new players, we want to get them to explore this one island that we've seen. Like, for example, this thing, which I'm showing you right now. This thing is what I thought could be a clan-like hazing incident. How this, just as, I'm getting off topic, but just as a thing. So you have like three major modes of transportation, just walking and jumping, using your grappling hook to go around, and later in the game having wingsuits to fly around everywhere. Now, this thing makes it so that they're just pillars, so you can't necessarily jump very easily from one to another because they're pretty narrow, but you have to. And you can't use the gun in the game, the little sling gun in your game, because that's like your biggest mode transportation, because these things reflect that thing off its surface. And you have to get to all the way over to this corner, which is stupid. It took me so long to get to this in order to get these two research point caches. I think that would be amazing hazing incident, just to see if people could do it and see how invested they are in the game. Anyways, going back to it, Worlds Adrift, or as I'm going into this, Era of Thieves, I believe is a great game, a lot of potential. And why I created this video is I'm hoping that any of you who see this and are watching to the end of this, because doing the voiceover now I realize I went way too long, I hope that you give this game a try. It's releasing onto Steam here soon. I think it's releasing on the... Let me check on that 1 second. Worlds Adrift will be releasing into Steam Early Access on May 18th. So depending on when you're watching this, that is either this evening or it happened just a couple days ago. I hope you guys will show Bosa Studios your support. Try this game out. I'm not going to try to overhype it. I'm just saying it's a good game. Has some glitches, not as polished as it can be, but it's a great game. If you get invested in it, you'll spend a lot of time into it, and it's a beautiful game. And I want to say this by Worlds Adrift and Bosa Studios have not paid me for this. This is just something I truly believe is a beautiful game and that can do very well, and I want to see it do very well so that I can have fun with all of you who are watching this. If you have any other questions, you can either ask me and I will try to answer to the best of my ability, or contact Bosa Studios directly. They have a great support team, and I've had great experience trying to get in contact with them over questions about the game. And yeah, I hope you guys have fun out there. Thank you for coming in. If you liked the video, again, please hit the subscribe button, like, and share. Every little bit helps. I'm trying to rebuild my channel after being gone for a little while. Try and get back into it. Thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great night. And as always, happy gaming.